Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear class, Assalamu alaikum. Today, the main title of the lecture is Elimination of Absorbed Poisons. Before that, we have discussed treatment of poisoning, and in treatment of poisoning, we have discussed treatment of unabsorbed poisons and their methods like emesis, gastric lavage, and now we are going to, and also after that we started the treatment of absorbed poisons from antidotes. So today, before starting elimination of absorbed poisons, we will continue antidotes, remaining part of antidotes, then elimination of absorbed poisons, then treatment of general symptoms, and then maintenance of patient's general condition, and lastly analytical toxicology. So coming to antidotes, coming to classification of antidotes, I have discussed the first type of antidotes, that is mechanical antidotes, yesterday in previous lecture. And you know there are three types of mechanical antidotes which we have discussed. Today, second type of antidote I take up, that is chemical antidotes. So they act by direct chemical action or they oxidize the poison. So in that way they make its effect null or dilute or weaken its effect. Examples are dilute acetic acid or vinegar. These are weak acids and they neutralize alkalis. If the poison is alkali, then dilute acetic acid and vinegar can be given. And if poison is acid, then we can give weak alkali like milk of magnesia, that is a weak alkali. So interestingly, the treatment of acid and alkalis is also by acids and alkalis, but they are, the poisonous acids are strong and alkalis are strong, but these remedies, chemical remedies, they are weak, either weak acids or weak alkalis. Now another chemical antidote is potassium permanganate, which is oxidizing agent for alkaloid poisons. So there are a number of poisons which are alkaloids in nature, and for that potassium permanganate can be given. Third type of antidotes, they are physiological or pharmacological antidotes. Now they produce effects opposite to that of poison. So in that way they don't directly negate the poison, but they are going in opposite direction, so that will also help to save the patient. And examples are atropine is a pharmacological antidote for pilocarpine, and naloxone is antidote for morphine. Next group is dispositional antidote. Now what they do, as their name suggests, they act by causing alterations in absorption, metabolism, distribution or excretion of a toxic substance or poison to reduce the amount available to tissues. So basically they are going to change nature of the poison, making changes in its different aspects, and in that way they reduce its quantity or reduce its availability to the tissues to cause harm. The prominent example is N-acetylcysteine, which is given in paracetamol poisoning. Next type is universal antidote. Now, universal antidote is a non-specific antidote. It's used when nature of ingested poison is not known. So it's for ingested poisons, number one. Number two, when there is no clear-cut diagnosis and nature of the poison ingested remains unclear. So what to do? There has to be given something. So on those occasions, universal antidote can be given. So, or when there is a combination of two or more poisons, ingestion is of more than one poison, even then that it can be given. So it's a mixture of readily available substances, and it's a mixture, but it is obsolete now. Nowadays it's not used because it has certain drawbacks which I will discuss. First we discuss the constituents, quantity and purpose of universal antidote. There are three parts of universal antidote. Number one, powdered charcoal and its alkaloids, that is, for example, burnt toast, that can become a powdered charcoal, and quantity of two, it should be 2 parts of powdered charcoal, and its purpose is to adsorb. As you know, it's a mechanical antidote which adsorbs the poisons. Constituent number 2 is magnesium oxide. It's also called milk of magnesia. So 1 part of magnesium oxide, and what is its function? It neutralizes acids. It's a weak alkali. Third part of universal antidote is tannic acid, or you can get it from strong tea because it is found in tea. It is also 1 part. So 2 parts of powdered charcoal, 1 part of magnesium oxide and 1 part of tannic acid. When they are in mixture form, mixed together, it becomes a universal antidote. So this tannic acid precipitates the poison. Now what is the dose of universal antidote? This is 1 tablespoonful in 200 ml of water. Next is myth of universal antidote. So what is myth? Universal antidote in the past was thought to be effective, but actually it is not effective. So its effectiveness of universal antidote is a myth. That means it's not true. So why it's not true? Because it adsorbs. Powdered charcoal in universal antidote adsorbs magnesium oxide, its own part. So when it adsorbs its own part, it is less available to the poison. And tannic acid has been found to be hepatotoxic in animals. So in a way, this universal antidote is not advisable to treat poisoning. Next group is chelating agents. Now these are special type of antidotes. Chelate is a Greek word. Chela means claw, जिसको हम उर्दू में पंजे कैद कहते हैं परिंदों के. So this claw shape chemical structure, it binds directly with metal ions. Now there are many metallic poisons like arsenic, lead, mercury and others. So those metal ions, these chelating agents bind with them. So they are specific antidotes against some heavy metals. So what they do, chemically they form a firm non-ionized cyclic complex, which is a chelate with cations. Cations means positive ions, those metallic ions. They form stable, soluble, non-toxic complexes with calcium and certain heavy metals. Now what happens? The chelated complexes are soluble in water and excreted lowering blood levels of heavy metals. So when these chelating agents come into action with poisons in blood, they form a compound, and this compound is excreted. So in that way they decrease the quantity of poison in blood. So these examples of chelating agents are BAL, number 1 BAL, number 2 EDTA, number 3 penicillamine, and decyfrosamine. Number 1 is BAL. It is abbreviation of British anti-Levizite. It is also called dimercaprol. It's used in heavy metal poisoning, for example for arsenic poisoning. Now what is the dose of BAL? It is given deep intramuscular injection, 10% solution in raucous oil with benzyl benzoate. In severe poisoning, 3 mg per kg 4 hourly for first 2 days. It is given for first 2 days. It is given in 3 mg per kg 4 hourly dose. Then on third day it's given 6 hourly, and then for next 10 days it is given 12 hourly, same dose. So this whole course takes 13 days, but if the poisoning is not cured, it can be repeated. Now there is what is indication of BAL? It is arsenic or metallic poisoning. And what is contraindication? It is not given in extensive liver damage because it can damage it more. Chelating agent number 2 is EDTA. It is abbreviation of ethylene diamine tetraacetate. It is used for lead, mercury, and arsenic poisoning. Its dose is 1 gram 2 times daily by slow intravenous infusion in isotonic glucose saline for 5 days. So it is 1 gram 2 times a day by slow intravenous infusion in glucose for 5 days. This course can be repeated after an interval of 2 days. Now it is better than BAL for arsenic and mercury poisoning, but it has also contraindication, that is in renal damage or kidney damage or kidney disease, it's contraindicated, not given. Third is penicillamine. It's also called cuprimine. This is degradation product of penicillin. Advantage of penicillamine is that it can be given orally and continually, so it is less toxic than EDTA. So penicillamine advantage is that it can be given orally, it can be given over a long period of time, it is less toxic. So these are its advantages. Its treatment of choice in copper, lead, and mercury poisoning. So it can treat most of the metallic poisons. It's very useful in Wilson's disease, that is due to over deposition of copper in tissues. Now dose of penicillamine is 30 gram per kg body weight, and maximum it can be given up to 2 grams per day. So actually it is 30 grams per day, but maximum it can go up to 2 grams per day, and this dose has to be divided in 4 times a day, every 6 hourly. Number 4 chelating agent decyfrosamine. This is specific antidote for acute iron poisoning in certain chronic diseases where iron is deposited in tissues, that is, for example, hemochromatosis. So with that we have discussed all antidotes including chelating agents. Our next slide is elimination of absorbed poisons. So how that means how we can remove poison from the body by some other methods, like it's by accelerating excretion of absorbed poison from body, especially in urine. So this is increasing the rate of excretion, especially from urine. Following methods are used. Number 1, forced diuresis. Number 2, catharsis. Number 3, peritoneal dialysis. Number 4, hemodialysis. Number 5, heme perfusion. Number 6, exchange transfusion. And number 7, whole bowel irrigation. So coming to number 1, that is forced diuresis. This is done by accelerating excretion of poison in urine. So how we can accelerate excretion? We can give ample fluid. That means large amount of fluid is given to induce diuresis. Also diuretics can be used like mannitol, chlorothiazide, and these are effective in salicylate, that means aspirin, amphetamines, and barbiturate poisoning. So first, forced diuresis is effective in salicylate, amphetamines, and barbiturate poisoning. Number 2 is catharsis. Now this is done by adding magnesium sulfate and sorbitol in GIT, and that accelerate the excretion of poison through stools. Number 3 is peritoneal dialysis, that means removal of poison from peritoneum. This is done for salicylate poisoning in children. Number 4 is hemodialysis or heme perfusion. So this is removal of poison from blood. So in case of barbiturate poisoning, salicylate poisoning, and methyl alcohol poisoning, there is some special method which is called hemodialysis or heme perfusion, through which it can be removed from blood. Number 5, exchange transfusion. Now this is exchange of blood. Complete blood is exchanged with new fresh blood. This is done in small children for all type of poisoning. Number 6, whole bowel irrigation. This is a new technique and it is an alternate to all above methods. So this was about elimination of absorbed poison. Next topic is treatment of general symptoms. Now, as in case of poisoning, the patients or victims can get many other symptoms other than specific poisoning symptoms, like pain, like low blood pressure, like convulsions, dehydration, electrolyte imbalance, etc. So what we will do, we will treat as per indications. So if there is severe pain, the patient is given morphine injection. If there is respiratory failure or compromised respiration, then oxygen and artificial respiration is required. If there is failing circulation, then cardiac stimulants are given. In case of convulsions, anticonvulsants can be used. In case of dehydration, saline infusions are given. In case of electrolyte imbalance, there is restoration of electrolytes balance. Electrolytes are also added. Now, sodium bicarbonate can be given when alkali level is decreased in the tissues. Glucose is given for depletion of liver glycogen. So these are few steps of treatment of general symptoms, but again they depend on the indications. Next is maintenance of patient's general condition. Now, patient has some other needs other than medication and general symptoms, like patient should be kept warm and comfortable. So his environment should be neat and clean. Prophylactic antibiotics are given for upper respiratory tract infections. Now these, even if there is no infection, there can be some infection. So the antibiotics are given. Especially this is hazard in elderly, number one. Number two, those who were unconscious for an hour or more, those patients who had respiratory infections before poisoning, those who have inhaled small amounts of vomitus before poisoning. So these four indications are when in these four conditions it is a must to give prophylactic antibiotics. Now good nursing care is required and physiotherapy if needed. Some patients who have attempted suicide or in severe depression, they must be psychiatrically evaluated and a therapy given. So what is that psychiatric evaluation? That means some psychiatrist is called to examine and to prescribe medication. The last topic today is analytical toxicology. It's very specialized topic, so it will not be discussed in detail. It's for at undergraduate level, just you should know what is analytical toxicology and what are various techniques. Just you should know a few names and then you should have some idea about them, which you can find from study from book. So you know the branches of toxicology have been discussed, and the first and most important branch is forensic toxicology. And forensic toxicology deals with medico-legal aspects that of poisoning. That means the manner of poisoning, whether the poisoning was homicidal, suicidal, or accidental. So what is the application of this knowledge, this forensic toxicology? It is for the purpose of law, because in cases of homicidal poisoning, there is some criminal involved who wants to kill someone by poisoning. So he has to be brought to the court, and if the allegation is proved, he has to be given proper punishment for that. Now this analytical toxicology helps a lot to determine the nature of poisoning, the cause of poisoning, the chemical diagnosis of the chemical which is responsible for those fatal or lethal effects. Because on autopsy examination, despite a very accurate autopsy examination, examiner may not be able to find the exact cause of poisoning. The chemicals may disappear from the body. It may not be detected due to any error. So what happens? He collects certain organs like stomach, intestine, and other body fluids, and liver and kidney and spleen. So these organs are sent to the chemical examiner for chemical analysis, and then from there a report is received back, and that report is very important. It can give the accurate cause of poisoning or chemical responsible for poisoning, and that can be produced in front of court as a proof of act of homicidal poisoning. So for this analytical toxicology, there are certain methods. They may be qualitative or quantitative. So qualitative means that they can detect, they may be positive, they may detect the poison is there from the specimen. Quantitative means that they can exactly trace out the exact quantity used of that chemical. So number one is steam distillation. These methods, most of these will be discussed in your practical. during your practicals. So steam distillation, then there are some color tests which are used for metallic poisoning. Then there is another number 3 is TAS auto method. Then number 4 neutron activation analysis. Number 5 is electrophoresis. Number 6 is spectroscopic examination. And number 7 is chromatography. It is latest and quite accurate, and it may be gas chromatography, liquid chromatography, and thin layer chromatography. So these all or most of these methods will be discussed in your practicals in detail. With that I conclude my lecture. Thank you. अच्छा, इसमें एक आखिरी स्लाइड मैंने नहीं पढ़ी.